second. I've only stood up here one other time in my life. It was 21 years and 7 months ago that I stood up here and I said I do. That's the only other time I've stood on this stage. But Lisa and I were married here a little over 21 years ago in this building. And thank you for asking me and having me here tonight. Now, I understand why you're sitting back there during the music. Okay, I understand it. It's a little loud. You want to protect your ears a little bit, but I'm not that loud. So I want everyone to go ahead and come up closer, because if you're not a little closer to me, I feel like you don't want to hear what I have to say, okay? So go ahead and come up a little closer. It's not going to work. You sit way back here in the back, Josh. Come on. Come on, Kelly. I really had no idea when I came up here tonight what age group I would be talking to exactly. I know Scott said you had a really good crowd last month, and evidently there were more people that wanted to hear Steve Turrentine than wanted to hear me. But I think maybe scheduling has a little bit to do with it. We're into December instead of being the first Monday. We moved it because of the basketball homecoming, and there's middle school basketball games going on tonight, so there's a lot of people not here. But I want to start off by sharing a little story with you. This is a story about a man named Rick. Rick is a real person, although Rick is not his real name. And Rick had problems. Anybody here have any of those? I've got some problems. I've had some problems. I'll continue to have problems. Rick had some problems in his life. Rick was married at one point, but he didn't last very long. And Rick worked in the factory, had a good job. But Rick was hurt while working and had to quit working and start drawing disability, and so financially things were a little bit rough. Rick started drawing some welfare assistance, food stamps, and different things to help make ends meet. He lived with his mom to help take care of her because his mom was very old and needed assistance, and so he lived with his mom to help take care of her. Church was a big part of Rick's life. Church was very, very important to Rick. As a matter of fact, Rick would just during the week, he would come up several times during the week just to sit down and have coffee with the ministers of the church, or visit, see if they needed help with anything that he was able to do, or just was always there. And Rick could sing. Now, speaking of singing, no offense to anybody else that's not here tonight, but American Idol hasn't come close to seeing the best of Kurt Down. You know what? But Rick could sing. Rick was often asked to sing at funerals. And he just had to do it. And he tried to use what he had to glorify God. But like I said, Rick had some problems too. And Rick would get himself in a little bit of financial trouble from time to time. And the church tried to help him out. He would get to a point where his utilities would get cut off. And someone from the church would pay to have his utilities turned back on. And just try to help him out. And eventually Rick's mother passed away, and she was one of those anchors in the church. She was always there. She was always uplifting people. She was always trying to be the rock in the congregation, but she passed away. And Rick started out battling with depression. He started getting real down. He got real sad. I mean, that was the person he lived with. That was who he'd been caring for. And now, he wasn't exactly sure what he was supposed to be doing. And the church would try to be there to help him out. And members more than once had to sit with him and convince him that he had a lot to live for. That they loved him and they needed him. And that he was there at the church to help them. And the church needed him. And that, most importantly, God needed him. Well, Rick continued on, and even though that, we would get in these financial struggles and people from church would help him out, and of course they would give him unsolicited advice on how to take care of his finances, it'd sink in for a little bit, but it wouldn't sink in for too long. And Rick contacted a bankruptcy lawyer, started having some more problems. But he assured the church everything was going to be okay, but the day finally arrived, and the minister was called there at the church where Rick attended. And when he showed up at the house, the sheriff's cars were there. There was a moving van there. And there were people carting stuff out of Rick's house. And they had on they looked like, anybody know what hazmat is? Hazardous material? They had on what looked like hazmat suits, like chemical protection suits, and these big heavy rubber gloves, and they're carting stuff out of Rick's house. Rick thought, when he was notified that his house was going to be sold for taxes, that if he just ignored the calls and if he just didn't answer the door when the sheriff came and knocked on the door, that everything would be all right, but it wasn't. And his house had been sold, and they were there to move him out. And as they began to cart all the stuff out of the house, the minister pulled up and saw them carrying the stuff out and piling it up. It looked like they were emptying out a dump. It looked like they were carrying trash out of the house, and for the most part, that's exactly what they were doing. That's why they were in these big, heavy suits and why they had on these thick gloves. You know what a pack rat is? See, one of Rick's problems was Rick living alone and not having what else to do is he'd stay up and watch late night TV. And anybody ever see an infomercial? He thought everything he saw on TV he had to order. And he got credit card after credit card after credit card, and he bought stuff. And he bought more stuff. And he bought more stuff. And all this stuff, he didn't really know what to do with it. He couldn't use it, and he just piled it up in his house. He had subscriptions to magazines like you can't believe. And he piled these magazines up in his house. And when the minister walked in the house, you see, the minister had offered to come over and talk to Rick. Remember, the church offered, there was always a reason why they couldn't come over. There was always some excuse he wasn't going to be home, or some reason they couldn't come over. When the minister walked in his house, he began to understand, because as he walked in the front door, there was one little small pathway that led to the house, and it was just piles of junk and trash. Literal trash. Bags of trash from no telling how many months or maybe years that had never been taken out. Dirty dishes after dirty dishes piled up that had never been cleaned. He guessed maybe Rick just bought more dishes when his dishes would get too dirty. And just trash piled everywhere. The house was just full of junk. And it was really hard. Ministers see a lot of stuff. I want to tell you right now,